Rise and shine. It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, and you're welcome to the breakfast show, Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Yes, indeed, Kayode. It's an easy Friday.
It is.
Yes.
You can say that again.
And thank God it's ease. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Train Bellin, and what a day it is. I mean, several times, the country keeps talking about, in fact, we face this question of insecurity here and there, such that it's caused, different things affecting the economy. A lot of people just trying to find their way out. But it's quite interesting to also note that at the moment, the DSS, they've been out there for a couple of days now, and now they're talking about vowing to clamp down on those inciting insecurity in the country. And you thought, oh, okay, sounds like music to the ears, even though I know it's a better late than never. And so whichever way that swings, hopefully that means that we should expect a lot more of these arrests or activity on the part of the DSS. Oh, by the way, while we're still waiting to see, remember the president did say that they're waiting for military action on those who carried out the attack on Senator Ibom. Part of the reasons being that we're getting into the campaign period, so you don't want anyone to internalize that thought that they could carry out such attacks against whoever and probably or think that they will get away with it. They need to be really firm and decisive on those kinds of characters, because that should never be allowed to go on. And speaking of which, some of these things just looks like they flow into each other. And while several cite the fact that they've hired up to here with the insecurity challenge, and then they leave the country. But, goodness, you have the president giving and conferring citizenship. Yeah, citizenship of Nigeria to several people just yesterday. And wow, I wonder how you guys internalize that.
I mean, it's something that happens from time to time, really. I mean, for a lot of people, it's first time hearing this, especially because there's been a lot of attention, as you said, on some people who want to leave the country for what has been described as greener pastures and all of that. So this coming is like another side, flip side to all of that. I mean, 286 foreigners granted citizenship. 208 of them received certificates for naturalization, while 78 got certificates by registrations. And what's also interesting is where they're from. I mean, these foreigners, they're from the United States, Europe, the Americas, Asia, Middle East, Oceania, and of course, Africa, which is our continent. And I'll tell you this, those are the destinations for a lot of Nigerians. A lot of people live in Nigeria, the United States, Europe, and the Americas, all of that. Even Asia, you see a lot of people actually go into some of these countries. You wonder, wait a minute, you probably be the only Nigerian there, but that's not even true. You see Nigerians everywhere in hundreds and all of that. And, what struck me particularly was, some of the statements made yesterday by the government saying that these people are expected to abide by the ideals and institution of the Nigerian national flag, the anthem, pledge, and respect for all constituted authorities. So I wonder how many Nigerians actually have internalized this. So this is something being told to foreigners who have, received citizenship of Nigeria. But I wonder if Nigerians who were born here were groomed in such manner. I wonder if this is taught in schools, maybe in families. Yes, families try to bring up children with ideals and all of that, be respectful, be obedient, be honest and all of that. But regarding the nation, the identity of the nation, the constitution, the national flag, the anthem, arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call to obey, to serve our fatherland. The pledge as well. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria. So I wonder if this is something that even the citizens that, got this, you could say, easily on a platter of gold by being born here, if they have internalized it. And I think that should be the message as well, that there is actually a lot of good in Nigeria, only if we at least stay faithful, stay truthful, and try to do the best for the country, from government to the people. By the way, the people are the government are the people. Bukola.
Well, indeed, Kayode, internalize it, do right by the country, internalize the pledge, the national anthem, and all of that. You know, it's critical. It's at the heart of the matter. But for me, Kayode, I'm always interested on a good story.
Okay.
So what's the motivation for 286 foreign nationals who sought citizenship of Nigeria, some of them by naturalization, some of them by registration? Well, those reasons could come as a result of a lot of things. You know, perhaps there are expatriates amongst them, perhaps there are those amongst them who have, you know, gotten married to Nigerians and are now seeking citizenship. You know, why would foreign nationals seek citizenship of Nigeria where Nigerians in droves? It's an exodus. They're leaving the country. They're saving, putting together all of their lives' resources in a bid to leaving the country for greener pastures. You know, but some people say that, you know, glass is either half empty or half full. So let's see the half full side of it this time around. Perhaps there are good reasons for them to want to stay in Nigeria, but I'd like to investigate it, you know, to find out why, you know, where Nigerians are leaving these ones,
It's
these foreign
greener
nationals.
pastures for these people.
As you
Actually,
identified,
yeah.
the same, you know, locations, they're from the same locations where Nigerians, you know, are jetting out to. So why would they want to remain in Nigeria with all of our challenges?
I'll be honest with you. Yes, I mean, nations have challenges. That's the reality of life. But Nigeria, whether you like it or not, see the capital inflow. Yes, it's not as much as we want it to be. It's not as much as we can carry with our capacity. But you see the capital inflows, the businesses coming in, the registrations. Now you're wondering, wait a minute, there is actually something here in the areas of mining. Oh, that's huge. And I can go on and on. Fintech, of course, it's a big one as well. Nigeria literally
is a big industry in Nigeria.
You know, the tech industry is like, Nigerian tech industry is like the capital in Africa. In fact, it's getting a lot of attention in the world. So there is a lot of good in Nigeria. There are stories of people.
Why is it easy to access all of the gains, you know, of those sectors by foreign nationals, and Nigerians themselves are not seeing it?
Well, I think it's a mindset thing.
That's the motivation for the good story that I would be in search of if I, you know, got the opportunity.
Let me give you a quick good story. One of them is, let me just confirm, she has like this humanitarian organization where she takes care of children and all of that. She's 72 years old, by the way, and so that's another motivation. Some people come here just to set up some sort of humanitarian organization, take care of children, some of them living with HIV and AIDS. So that's one side of the story. But for a lot of people, it is business. And business is actually good in Nigeria. 282
compared with the number of Nigerians leaving or those that you find in other countries, you know, it's insignificant.
Well, 286, not bad, really. And I should just point out as well, the case of Senator Vying that Chamberlain mentioned. It also points to the work that the citizens can do with security operatives in trying to at least nip this issue of security in the bud. We all have our work to do, really. That's why I say the government is the people, and the people is the government. Chamberlain.
Oh, yes, indeed, guys. Well, yeah, but we'll take a moment now and go for the dailies and take you through what and how they reflect the items. Just a moment. Stay with us. All right, let's take you through some of the dailies. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. Hardship as inflation rate hits 20.5%, highest since 2005. Whoa. Food inflation rate stands at 23.1%. NLC 6 cost of living allowance. Not a bad idea, is it? Suspend new taxes, levies. NECA. Government policies fueling inflation. NAGAF president. So you'd always get this back and forth. So NLC seeking cost of living allowance. Anyway, I think National Assembly members have all sorts of allowance, if I can remember. Well, I know maybe they'll publish it to shut everybody else up. You never can tell. they could decide to surprise everybody else. And then NECA saying suspend new taxes and levies. Well, perhaps that will speak to the recent impression or the recent mindset of government saying, remember the new telecom tax. So who knows what happens. But this is the big lead on the front page here today. You might just want to go ahead and check that. But just before we look at what is beneath this lead story, look at SAN's kick as Malami moves to appoint new Supreme Court justices. So I'm sure there will be a lot more about this in the days ahead. But at the bottom strip, also equally a big headline, PDP crisis, heavens won't fall if IU resigns today. Body Judge Bokno Akerile say PDP risks losing 2023 polls if IU remains chairman. And then Atiku appoints Governor Udom campaign DG, Wike makes team. Quite a huge one there. Oh yeah, it's a Friday. Take a look at Mr. and Mrs. this morning. Well, Mrs. gleefully just telling Mr. Dear, since we got married, I've added, 20 kilograms? And Mr. says, ooh, you see? I lost 20 kilograms within the same period, yet some stupid people said I've not been investing. Okay, whatever that means. But don't forget, you can flip to the back page. The 2022 Commonwealth Games World Athletics Championships is the kicker there. Buhari confers national honors on athletes, gifts, 200 million naira to Team Nigeria contingent. Wow, what a time it was for that team. And just putting smiles on all Nigeria and all lovers of Nigeria at that during their fantastic world record-breaking performances. So they do deserve whatever accolades that anyone gives to them. So that is a very, we can't forget that in a hurry, can't we? Or can we? And then you see Federer retires from tennis. Ooh, court stops NFF's September 30 election in Benin City. Wow, what is the implication of that? I think we may need to find out. But that's Vanguard today.
Mr. and Mrs., it looks like Mrs. is experiencing inflation. Mr. is experiencing deflation. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The big story is on inflation, right? Rising costs, supply chain disruptions worsen inflation. That's right. May spiral out of control if triggers are not addressed. Experts warn. Higher interest rates heighten loan defaults, but put banks at risk, says Moody's. Worst yet to come unless government contains importation. So, different ideas here and there, solutions. The CBN Monetary Policy Committee raised interest rates, trying to mop up, the funds and all of that. It was a very difficult, decision, it will seem. But it looks like that decision now, some experts are saying, well, it is heightening loan default, and if people can't take loans to do business, you know what, don't let me go on and on about this. It just shows how much of a tricky thing it is being an economic manager. You need to at least find the best decision, stand by it, and if it looks like it's not working, hey, be open to make changes. After all, that's what life is all about. But how are you managing this inflation situation? Let us know, really, because rising cost of food, energy costs, transportation, housing, oh dear. Let us know, how are you going about this? We can share it with others. And at the bottom strip, you have this one, Asman air suspension, depleted fleet cut off access to northern states. Yeah, Asman has been known to have a heavy burden of flights to northern states. So you wonder how this will be eased, or at least evened out, rather. Just one more for you. Ekweremadu is treated harshly. Unwell may not be granted bail, says UK lawyer. So that's the update on that one. Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspaper.
Yes, indeed. From the Guardian newspapers, let's quickly take a look at this Nigeria. And this Nigeria takes a detour from the, other big stories, and this is how it chooses to lead. 400 billion naira projects padded into budget, says ICPC. Tracks 49.9 billion naira collected as salaries by ghost workers from January to June 2022. 49.9 billion naira is a lot of money, and there's this conversation ongoing around the implementation of the Oronsoye report and how this would mean job losses for a lot of civil servants, but then again, this is another aspect, another side to the story. 49.9 billion naira as salaries by ghost workers from January to June. That money is all gone to ghost workers. So how can the budget be further tightened? How did this even escape the notice of those who are supposed to be oversighting ministries and parastatals? These are some of the questions, that should be asked.
I think sometimes it's just convenient to say ghost workers. They're not really ghost workers, are they? Perhaps someone put some name that wasn't meant to be there, put some account, or someone is diverted. Let's unravel this a bit. Ghost workers? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it should be a thing of the past. Does that also place a question mark, by the way, on IPPIS?
Big one, because I recall we had the HOS, the head of service, and I think the NSA recently saying lots of people are being prosecuted by the ICPC over, some sort of discrepancy. Workers, especially civil servants. So it looks like, might be working. We've heard them say also, yes, save government lots of funds, but you won't forget ASU.
Don't forget ASU.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at some other stories. You find this one just beneath the big story on the right hand of this Nigeria. FG declares NatForce illegal, orders immediate disbandment. NatForce would be the task force on the prohibition of smuggling of light weapons and small arms. Well, the Minister of Interior, who was speaking in this report, says that the council passed a vote of confidence on security agencies, to tackle that. I hope that's a pleasant development. But of course, we'll keep our tabs on this story and inform you on how it unfolds. At the top corner of this Nigeria, just beside the nameplate, you'll find this one. Warms my heart, by the way. Rivers ends denial of women inheritance rights. That's a page 8 read of this Nigeria. Yes, indeed, a page 8 read of this Nigeria. We hope that other southern states will follow suit, i.e. Cross Rivers, the states in the southeast will follow suit by putting a definitive end to the denial of women's inheritance rights. That's this Nigeria for you this morning.
Well, taking a look at New Telegraph next. Duplicated projects as the kicker. MDA's padded 2021-2022 budget with 300 billion naira, 100 billion naira, ascribed to the ICPC. Oh boy, you just see these kind of things and you just wonder. To say the least. Because how else could you relate to this kind of scenario? 300 billion naira and 100 billion naira. So 300 for 2021 budget and 100 billion naira for 2022 budget. Look at the writer first. Tracks 49.9 billion naira ghost workers' salary from January to June 2022. Senate probes NIOMCO for dormancy since 2008. I don't know if you ever heard of NIOMCO anyway, so I know there are agencies like that you never wonder. You never hear about them, but they've got huge budgetary allocations year on year in those agencies, to try to create some more, as a matter of fact. And so now there will always be questions when you see this kind of headline. So what if? So one of those what ifs would be, does that mean that if ICPC did not come up with this, it would have just not even been mentioned? So what were we doing that 300 billion naira was padded? The 2021 budget was padded with 300 billion naira for a country that we keep talking about paucity of funds, lack of it, and then trying to tax the telcos or tax Nigerians a lot more to get money. Well, we have a lot of leakages almost all over the agencies when you look deeper forensically. How do we explain this? It's and by the way, look, I know you know, the fact that it's been mentioned here does not necessarily mean that the monies will come back or that those who are responsible for this will be sanctioned. And I know you wonder, so What if they come up with details about 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017 budgets, if I could stop there? Would that be similar scenarios? Well, they're doing it because they've done it before and because they could do it again. And they got away when they did it. That's what gives them the effrontery. It's not 1 billion or 2 billion or 30 billion, guys. 300 billion naira. Well, and then look at this one at the bottom strip as well. Strike. Court can't force us to teach with open minds. ASU. So you see how ironic that is. ASU is asking for their rightful pay in terms of what is due them to improve the education sector where the country can leverage on to grow. That's not happening yet. I know the matters are in court, in industrial court, but can you reconcile it with the headline that's above that story? Wow. Well, guys, let me just leave this paper because I could go on and on with this. That's New Telegraph this morning, guys.
Chamberlain, really a lot. And if you think that was the last, well, take a look at front page of Nigerian News Direct. By the way, Nyomco. I wonder what that is. That's the National Iron Ore Mining Company. Well, News Direct rather leads with the padding story. ICPC alleges 400 billion naira padding in 2021-2022 budgets. Yeah, you saw that right. And of course, the other riders, which we've talked about, uncovers 49.9 billion naira salaries for ghost workers. And the rest. Well, a couple of other stories consistent with what we've seen across the board. NCA suspends ASMAN. FG needs to address unabating drivers of inflation, CPPE, as well as a host of other stories. That's Nigerian News Direct for you.
And from Nigerian News Direct, let's quickly take a look at this one. That's leadership on Friday. Bagauda Kalto's wife, Madi, lied. My husband didn't plant bomb. Just above that big story, you find 1995 Durban hotel bombing. Bagauda Kalto's wife, this statement is attributed to her. Madi lied. My husband didn't plant bomb. That's the Kaduna-based journalist who disappeared in mysterious circumstances under the military regime in 1995. And let's take a look at the riders. Once Madi, that's the ex-US envoy, Russell Hanks, questioned over husband's disappearance. Journalists missing since 1996. U.S. Embassy still mum. And by the way, the popular press center inside the Lagos State Government Secretariat is named after Bagauda Kalto Press Center. I wonder how that goes. It must be a difficult life for the widow. Many years after, there's no closure. Well, that's the big story for Leadership on Friday. You also find this one on the front page of Leadership. Akpabio, that's just beneath the nameplate. Akpabio, we're yet to receive certified court judgment. INEC, the INEC National Commissioner on Voter Education was speaking on our program Politics Today yesterday, and he did say that much, that they need a certified true copy of court judgment in order to upload the name of the candidate on the INEC's portal and recognize him as the candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District. Just before we exit Leadership on Friday, you also have this one on politics under the big story. At 2023, Atiku, Tinubu, Kwankwaso kick as Obi leads in NOI poll. It's getting interesting, ladies and gentlemen. That's Leadership on Friday for you.
Well, look at Daily Trust. Inflation surge ravaging economies across Africa as Nigeria rises to 17-year high. Ghana, Malawi, Rwanda struggle with local currencies. Complementary policies needed to boost food production, ascribed to experts. We're more concerned with what's going on at home here, anyways. So that we can deal with our own case. Well, that is what you see here as the big lead on the front page of Daily Trust. So that wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
judgment, definitely the court will look at, the commission will look at the specifics of the judgment, have a clear understanding of what transpired in court, and also have a clear understanding of the orders that the court has made and what is expected of us. And then we will study the judgment and see whether it is still within the purview of what the commission can concede. If it is not within the purview of what the commission can concede, then the commission will take it up. But based on our processes and based on our procedures and also based on our rules, we respect court orders because under Section 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we are a public trust, we are a public institution, and we are bound to obey orders from properly constituted courts of law. But we have to receive the judgment, study the judgment, understand what has transpired in relation to the matter, and then make a decision on what the court expects us to do, and also make a decision whether the commission will appeal against such a judgment or such an order. But until we receive such a court order or such a judgment, the commission will meet and take a decision on what to do. But as of today, we have not received any court order or court judgment.
All right, welcome back. So, yes, that's what we'll focus on this morning, the Ibom Northwest Senatorial Tussle. We've got Mr. Ofyong here with us. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Chamberlain. Yeah.
Well, lots of people still trying to digest that, what transpired, as it were. But you heard Mr. Okoye there, and you've also have read the reports about that particular decision of court. There are several things. First of all, what is your impression of how this court case has been handed down?
Well, let me start by also acknowledging that I have not seen the full text of the judgment, just like my friend and learned friend, Mr. Festus Okoye, stated. Now, it is always difficult for anyone who was not a party to the case, who was not counsel in the case, who has not read the judgment, to give an informed opinion of why judgment went the way it did. But having said that, what I can say about the case is that it's one of those cases which the Constitution defines as a pre-election case. Pre-election are defined in three senses. One, where an aspirant to a political office under the Constitution is complaining about the manner in which the political party to which he belongs has conducted the primaries, either in breach of the Electoral Act, their own guidelines, or the Constitution, and then, of course, that is a pre-election matter. The other aspect of it, and I think that is the pertinent one in regard to the conversation we're having this morning, is where an aspirant complains about the conduct of INEC in connection with the decision which they have made touching on his capacity to contest the election. Of course, the third category is where the political party complains about the conduct of INEC. So the particular action can be posited within the second ambit, which is an aspirant here, which is the distinguished former senator for the Akwa Ibom Northwest, is complaining about the conduct of INEC. So that gives him the status, or what we call the locus standi, to make the complaints which he's making. The other point which the public may be interested in knowing about is that when it comes to the Electoral Act 2022 has actually radically reshaped the space or the primary environment of political parties. In the earlier version, which has been amended, what the law required was that the political party should submit a list of candidates and then specifically enjoined that INEC cannot reject the list, any candidate submitted by the political party.
But there are condition precedents.
Yeah, but it actually said it wasn't the business of INEC to reject them. That was the 2010-2011 Electoral Act as amended. But in the 2022 Electoral Act, particularly Section 29, it says that the political parties should submit a list of candidates for the election who should have emerged from a valid primary conducted by the political parties.
Valid primary?
Yes.
So what if they submit a name that is not a valid primary?
Exactly, that's the point, okay? So, and then it deleted the provision in the earlier version of the Act, that's the 2010 and 2011 version of the Act, or if you like, up to 2015 amendment of the Electoral Act, which prohibited INEC from rejecting the names of any candidate. So in my view, INEC would be within the powers to say, look, you have not submitted to us a name of a candidate who emerged from a valid primary. Matters are not helped by the fact that Section 84 of the Act requires that INEC must monitor. In fact, it uses the word shall. And in legal lexicon, when the law uses the word shall, that's compulsive, that's mandatory.
In other words, it says, if INEC does not monitor the primary, it validates.
It says that if INEC does not, INEC must monitor. It says shall be monitored. Political parties shall produce candidates who hold primaries, which shall be monitored by INEC. Now, so it is true though that sometimes the court look at the word shall and interpret it as may, discretionary. But in my view, that section would not be one of those sections. And the reason is that when you look at the whole context of that section, it actually then goes on to emphasize that any political party which has not complied with that provision of that section, Section 84, the Electoral Act generally, but will not produce, will have his candidate, will not participate in the election.
In other words, you're saying there are contexts where you can interpret shall as may. And does that mean you can also interpret may as shall?
Oh, of course. There are contexts in which you can interpret may or as shall. Again, so unless I've seen what was argued, my view as at now is that the context of Section 84, the shall, in the context of Section 84, subsection 1, is mandatory, that it will not yield itself to being interpreted as may, because the consequences prescribed for failure to comply with that section.
Okay, we'll explore that a little further, but some of the circumstances surrounding this particular case, there are those who are asking questions. For instance, the camp of Deji Kudom, who was on the seat, says that, wait a minute, we're not even joined in this case. There are parties to this particular case.
Okay.
So how is it that the judge or judgment can come through when parties in the case were not even joined in the matter? They were not aware of this matter.
Okay, all right. So there are two things to be said there. Number one is this, that the law as it stands is that if you are going to take up a suit, you must join the necessary parties. Now, it is the plaintiff who nominates who the necessary parties are in his case, because it is a complaint that determines who the necessary parties are to his case. So unless I see what the complaints of the plaintiff was in the, either the rejecting summons, or some people are using, taking out these proceedings by way of writ of summons and statement of claim. So whatever it is, the means by which they initiated this process, I would need to see the reliefs they sought, the claims they made. That will determine whether or not the party, Ekudum, was a necessary party. But there's something interesting I read. Like I said, I've not read the full text of the judgment. But in the course of reading newspaper reports of that judgment, one of the things that emerged was that the trial court, the Federal High Court, His Lordship Justice, seems to have taken the view that the Ekudum primaries was a primary not conducted by the authorized by the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress. Now, again, the law is very settled on this, that the primaries conducted, the only valid primaries which the law recognizes is one which is conducted on the authority of the National Working Committee.
And in that, so now, if in this case, because they argue that since we were not parties to it, and if we understand the argument properly, they say, well, he just joined INEC in this case. So
I was actually going to add a second thing, which was this, that first I've made the point that it's the plaintiff who nominates who is the parties are, because he's the one initiating the process. And whether they're necessary parties or not will be determined by the claims before the court. The court actually also has a discretion, when the matter is brought before it, to join parties who he considers are necessary but were not joined
in the matter.
So that's one part of that's the second part of it. The third part of it is this: Ekudum himself, when he heard of the pendency of the case,
should have applied
to be joined
in the matter.
So if you stand by and allow litigation to go on, which your interest is affected, and you have not joined, then of course you have yourself to blame. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court has just given a decision very recently. The case of the Ibom State case, Odi and the other senator.
Senator Ogba.
Ogba, that's right, yes. Again, that was a very interesting case. It was a case where Ogba was not joined. Odi went to court. He sued PDP. He sued INEC. He did not join Ogba. Now, the lower court, that's the Court of First, the Federal High Court, came to the conclusion that Ogba had not been joined, and that Ogba had not made even the application to be joined, and went on to determine the case on the basis of the claims made by...
But there was some confusion there, because they said, look, how is it that the court said, well, they upheld the appeal, and in the same breath, ordered the retrial? So they thought...
No. That's a different case. That's a different case. The what case I'm talking about, at least I have been privileged to read the judgment up to the judgment of the Court of Appeal. Okay? And so the narration in the judgment of the Court of Appeal was to the fact that on the day, I think it was 7th of June, when the case came up, Senator Ogba, did not have an application before the court for joinder, and then proceeded to give judgment in the contest between only Odi and INEC and PDP.
Again, the discretionary matter was not...
No, the issue of discretion did not come up, that's all. Then Ogba appealed to the Court of Appeal. And at the Court of Appeal, and here's why I say it's interesting. At the Court of Appeal, the issue was raised that Ogba, you were not a party to the case.
So how do you appeal?
In the Federal High Court. And therefore, if you want to come here, you should obtain leave,
of course,
to be joined as a party, as an interested party. The Court of Appeal took the position that, look, these are a free election matter, and leave is no requirement for anyone to appeal.
But the Supreme Court didn't agree.
The Supreme Court did not agree. So the position, therefore, the final position is the matter has now been determined as between Odi and the INEC and PDP, without Ogba having an opportunity to have any say. So again, that speaks to the fact that if Ekudum still thinks that he's been shortchanged in the judgment which has been given, he should get to his legal advisors very quickly so that they can do the needful.
But
otherwise, you may remain shut out forever.
But they also argue that there's a case in court that is going to be determined, I think they're saying 6 days or thereabout.
Yes.
Where all the parties are joined in the matter on this same case.
Very good.
So if and when the judgment comes through,
yes,
does it invalidate this particular one?
You know, no, it's not going to invalidate this particular one. It's not going to invalidate this
Even
particular
though it's the same subject matter?
Yes, it's not going to invalidate because the courts are courts of coordinated jurisdiction. So one judgment of a coordinated jurisdiction cannot invalidate the judgment of another coordinated jurisdiction. But we've heard
INEC say, look, when they give two judgments like that, they ask, well, which one came what? Is it first or recent?
No, that does not. The issues of abuse of court process cannot arise in this case because Mepudum was not a party to that one. Now, and here is the point which I make. The practitioners who appeared in that case, they know probably what they were doing, but if I could have suggested anything to them, it would have been, if you are aware that there's a case pending before the Federal High Court, and happily it's only the Federal High Court, and the Federal High Court jurisdiction runs throughout the country, the appropriate thing to have done would have been to apply to consolidate, to the court to consolidate the two cases and hear them together, rather than allow the situation of this one proceeding to judgment, a different judgment, and the other one proceeding to a different judgment. The ultimate result is going to be this, that you have to appeal the two cases. And it's only the Court of Appeal that would then be able to intervene and decide, okay, this particular one is the one which is upheld, this other one is the one which is not upheld. But until the Court of Appeal does that, the two judgments remain existing and valid.
Wow.
The problem, of course, would be that if the other judgment contradicts the current judgment, if the anticipated judgment now contradicts the current judgment, is going to put INEC in a difficult position. And therefore, it will become necessary for INEC to choose which of the cases it would appeal.
Which is what is likely going to happen, because they argue, the one that will be delivered in 6 or 7 days' time, that the judgment was based on false documents that they presented the court. That's why they didn't join them. But those are just what is. Well, the court will decide. So when they decide,
yeah, that's I was not going to say the same thing. That when a matter is before the court, it's up to these. I can't.
Yeah. So we'll wait until that happens. So let's get to Lagos. My colleagues have got some questions for you. Go ahead, guys.
Right. Thank you, Chamberlain. So, senior advocate. So weighing both cases, Justice Nwite's judgment, and I believe the one to be decided by Justice Okorowo, if I'm correct. So Justice Nwite's case had, INEC and Senator Akpabio as the plaintiffs, and the other one had some more representation, including the other aspirant or candidate, as the case may be. In terms of fair hearing, because for the Justice Nwite's case, it was essentially Senator Akpabio petitioning against INEC, as it were, for not publishing his name. But the other party's case was not presented there. Would you say, or do you think that, strong points will have been made, perhaps by the INEC's lawyer or the INEC's counsel, such that it maybe at least represents the other party in this case? Because the argument for a lot of people is that maybe INEC's counsel did not present the other sides of the case. For example, the fact that Senator Akpabio was already in the running for the presidential ticket of the APC as well, and perhaps a conflict, participating in two primaries, even though he withdrew eventually. So in terms of that, would you say that Justice Nwite's, at least the case before Justice Nwite that was decided, was fair enough in terms of representation?
I've previously said, unless you see the claims made in the Justice Nwite judgment, it's difficult to say who else should have been a party to that case. But one thing I'm clear about is this, that if you have two cases, both seeking to determine similar questions, or questions which are going to have impact on the other, prudence would suggest that to avoid a state of conflicting judgment, that you apply to have the two cases consolidated and heard together. Why that wasn't done, I wouldn't know. Since I'm not the counsel in the case, I wouldn't know what the counsel know, which made them not take that option. But looking from the outside into the case, that's what I would have thought should have been done. And and when you speak about the fairness of the hearing before Justice Mwite, it all depends on whether or not the question of Akpabio, Senator Akpabio, contesting in the presidential primary was brought up in that case. Again, is the parties who nominate what issues they are agitating for before the court. It is not for the court to jump into the arena and pick up matters which the parties have not raised. And if what was alleged against INEC did not concern the presidential election, it is doubtful whether INEC would have raised that. And in any event, I think that is an absolute speculation for anyone to say what INEC raised or INEC did not raise, what argument INEC preferred or did not prefer, because no one has, at least I have not seen INEC's response. Right. I've not seen INEC's written address on the subject, so I can't speak to any lack of agitation of the correct issues before that Justice okay. Judgment.
But I'd like you to speak to the point you made.
You can't...
pardon me, you can land on that point quickly.
Okay. You can't anticipate what you said the other judgment coming up before Justice Okoro, you can't anticipate what he would decide. I can't even speculate on what the issues before that court are.
Okay.
So I can only speak generally.
Okay, two issues quickly.
I know to be the state of the law.
But pardon me, two issues quickly. So first is, whose call should it be then to sort of harmonize those cases? Because, I mean, we've had that issue before. I recall in the case of Rivers, people getting ex parte orders here and there, and people wondering, did you know that this case was ready before another court? I mean, people go into different states just to get those orders and all of that. So whose call should it have been to sort of harmonize and ensure that, I mean, no one knows how the coming case will go, but, I mean, what if they conflict? That could have been avoided. So whose call? Is it the judge? Is it the counsels? Or who? Who should have made that call, perhaps?
Well, the first... okay, let me start from the end, and then I can get back to the initiating process. Now that this has happened, one judgment has been given already, and another judgment is likely coming up. It will be left for the Court of Appeal to harmonize whatever the judgments are. If it turns out that the judgment in Mwite is the same as the tenor of the judgment in Mwite is the same as the tenor of the judgment in the other anticipated case, then, of course, what will happen is that both whoever is aggrieved will go up to the Court of Appeal. But even if they're divergent, what will still happen is that the reconciliation would take place in the Court of Appeal. So the harmonization, as you call it, will take place in the Court of Appeal. But I do need to also mention something else. The National Judicial Council had taken a policy position that in respect of these political cases, the heads of court should issue practice directions which ensure that these cases are filed within the judicial division where the events occurred. So, for instance, if you are talking about the Mwite judgment, Justice Mwite judgment, that case, by the practice direction of the Federal High Court, which is actually in conformity with the policy direction issued by the National Judicial Council ought to have been filed in Akwa Ibom. So also the other anticipated judgment, because they all raise the question of the primary election for Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District. However, what has happened is that because the Federal High Court went on vacation, many of these cases are being heard as by the judges who are in those divisions, the vacation judges. And sometimes, because the chief judge of the Federal High Court also has the authority, notwithstanding the provision of that rule, of the practice, the pre-election practice direction 2022, to assign the case to judges outside of that state. So the conclusion I want to draw is, if a case is filed in the registry of the court, it should actually be brought to the attention of the chief judge, wherever it is, with these pre-election cases, so that he can then direct that the cases should be heard in one place. Ultimately, it is the chief judge who directs cases to be heard by any of the judges. So I think that that kind of harmonization should take place. And I can also add that something very useful, the President of the Court of Appeal has taken a very useful step in passing what has come to be known as the pre-election appeal, political cases, political leadership practice direction. And the tenor of it is that wherever an appeal is filed touching on either a pre-election matter or a political leadership matter, it must be brought to the attention of the President of the Court of Appeal, who will then make special arrangements on how those cases will be heard. And the purpose of that rule is, as stated in the rule itself, to avoid a situation of conflicting decisions. I think that's something which the heads of courts, particularly the head of the Federal High Court, could very usefully borrow from, by ensuring that whenever any of these cases are filed, particularly touching on a particular state, multiple cases filed, if it could ensure that they are brought together and assigned to the same judge, it would avoid the scenery which we are discussing here. That would be my suggestion.
Well, Senior Advocate, I'm interested in the outcome of this judgment, perhaps especially as it has to do with the spirit of the law. I noted that you said earlier that Justice Nwite seems to have taken the view that the primary conducted by the APC in the state was not monitored, was not duly approved by the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress in Akwa Ibom State. Now, could the judge have also noted that there were factions of the political party in that state, and as a result ruled differently, or perhaps ordered a retrial of some sorts of the primaries?
No, I think the answer to that is very straightforward. The courts, in terms of primaries, the authority to conduct primaries, it does not belong to the state executive of the party. So whatever the faction is in the state, they do not have the authority to conduct primaries. The law is well settled that it is only the National Working Committee of the party or the National Executive of the party which can conduct party primaries. So without any regard to factions or whatever existed there, once the state executive cannot conduct primary, it doesn't matter which faction conducted it, it would not be recognized. It's only the primaries conducted on the authority of the National Working Committee that received the recognition of the law.
But then INEC, in its earlier reaction to Senator Akpabio's claim to the ticket, had said that it did not monitor the primary that produced Senator Akpabio. Hence, it would not recognize Senator Akpabio as the candidate for Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District. Why didn't the court also take this into cognizance, knowing full well that any candidate that will be produced at the primary level must have INEC officials monitoring that primary?
Okay, very good. And that's a very, very good question. Now, the existing regime for monitoring primaries is this, that the national headquarters of the political parties actually are the ones who write to INEC. INEC entertains communication from the national headquarters of the party. So, for instance, if a date for the primary is fixed, the first thing is that the courts take the view that this is a primary of the party. It is the business of the party to conduct the primary. So they fix that date. But once you fix that date, you have to mandatorily inform INEC 21 days before the date of that primary. So, and INEC would entertain communication from the national headquarters. Secondly, the national headquarters is also the organ, the National Working Committee, that appoints members of the State Congress Committee, that the State Primary Election Committee. So invariably, INEC also is informed through the same national headquarters of those who have been so appointed. And so it is those people who will now go to the states. And as my friend Festus Okoye has been very insistent and very stringent in emphasizing, the national headquarters of INEC have their election monitoring team. So they invariably send the election monitoring teams to the states. And when they get to the state, they liaise with the INEC in the state to monitor the elections. Now, so I expect, and that's where the INEC monitors know better than any one of us, the election they monitored, who were the people the APC informed them were the state Congress or the state primary election committee member to conduct that election. Those were the people who were to get in touch with INEC and tell INEC, here is the venue of our election. In fact, alongside with the letter informing INEC of the date of the election, which must be 21 days to the date of it, they must also have informed INEC of the location, the venue where the election was going to be held. And it is on that basis that the INEC monitoring team coming into the state goes to do the monitoring of the election. And it's the INEC monitoring report becomes very significant in that context.
And it's usually headed, INEC's team is usually headed by the Resident Electoral Commissioner in that state.
Not necessarily. The Resident Electoral Commission in that state, well, let me not speak about the internal matters of INEC because I'm not sure. This is not what is written into the law. Okay. What I do know from what our friend Festus Okoye has said many times is that they rely on the INEC monitoring team. The state, the Resident Electoral Commission, is the head of INEC and the representative of INEC in the state. So the usual problem is that becomes an internal problem. If INEC is sending officers from the headquarters, and those officers are junior in rank to the Resident Electoral Commission, of course, is that team. If he chooses to go with them, he would be the head.
Well, we've been told several times that INEC's team is usually headed by the REC in the States.
Oh, great.
So that's what they say, because they can't be working across purposes.
Fine. So if that's the case, I can't speak to them because it's not written into the law or the guideline, but I've heard the same thing being said.
Yeah. Well, clearly there are some issues there. The one for the courts wherein they need to ensure that there isn't that loophole where they are aware of similar cases going on so they don't give conflicting judgment. That has come up several times, and we're hoping that that can at least be addressed so that you don't have judges saying, well, I didn't know about this, then I give this order, and so it gives a lot more headache to the public, as a matter of fact. And if I could just end with reading this section 8413 of the 2022 Electoral Act, where it says, quote, where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidate for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. So, who knows what to expect?
And that's why I'm also surprised at the judgment of Mwite, the one which is being spoken about now. And the reason is this. If INEC did not monitor that election, that is clearly a non-compliance with the conduct of primaries, because Section 84, subsection 1, mandatorily requires INEC to monitor that any primary from where a candidate of a political party is to emerge. So I have a problem there. We'll wait and see what the Superior Court say about it.
All right, we'll wait and hope to see what happens. Well, we have to thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. Mr. Ofiong Ofiong is a senior advocate of Nigeria. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
National policy for intellectual property, and it's the reason the federal government has convened this multi-stakeholders workshop in Abuja to validate a draft national intellectual property policy and strategy. The document is expected to provide a defined path for harnessing the country's rich endowments in the areas of innovation and creativity to stimulate wealth creation.
Government has always acknowledged the need for a separate policy on intellectual property based on the conviction that the future of our economy will be decisively influenced by technology and the creative industry. The draft that is being considered today is an inclusive, organic, and comprehensive blueprint on the protection, administration, use, and promotion of intellectual property.
By adopting a national IP policy and an implementation strategy, the country is able to outline directives in the administration and management of IPRs across the broad spectrum of national activity. The implementation strategy for the policy also provides a framework within which a country can engage in technical cooperation, not only with WIPO, but with other development partners.
In the next 3 days, the participants are expected to cross the T's and dot the I's on the draft national intellectual property policy and strategy and come up with a final draft for approval, as explained by the Director General of the Nigerian Copyrights Commission.
I can speak for our own side of the divide, which is that we will get the document ready before the week runs out. I see it as a morale booster. I see it as a catalyst. I see it as a roadmap, so that from administration to administration, everyone will know where Nigeria wants to go on the different aspects of intellectual property.
The policy, when completed, will also tackle the challenge of copyright infringement in Nigeria. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Well, that is what we'll be discussing today, this segment on Sunrise Daily. And we've got Mrs. Loretta Asiedu, who is the Senior Counselor, World Intellectual Property Organization, Division for Africa. And sitting beside her is Dr. John Asain, Director General, Nigerian Copyright Commission. Good morning. Thank you for coming on, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, we did hear you say we need to know where Nigeria is headed, what the intention is, or what our plan is concerning different aspects of intellectual property. So if I could start with you, Dr. Sien, where are we now concerning this draft policy strategy?
Well, thanks for having me this morning, and thank you for the good work you're doing. On the policy, good enough, we have a validated policy by stakeholders. So we are at the verge of cleaning up, and hopefully by next week, we should be able to transmit to the respective honorable ministers who will process and hopefully take up to the Federal Executive Council for final approval or ratification.
Okay, well, it's good to know that the world is with us on this one. So WIPO comes in and does it. So how is WIPO, how is your role playing out here?
Right. Thank you so much for having us this morning. Well, as he already said, the policy is at a stage where it's going to be validated. Well, it's already validated, and the ministers are going to be handing it over to the higher authorities for decision making. Now, how the World Intellectual Property supports the development of national IP policies is that we enable or we facilitate the consultation process that leads to the development of the policy. And then after the policy is adopted, we facilitate also the activities and the projects that are supposed to be undertaken in implementation of the policy. WIPO has been Nigeria's partner all through the years in terms of shaping the intellectual property landscape of the country. But now, if the policy is adopted, it will now create the framework within which a consistent and streamlined approach to technical assistance will be delivered.
Well, Dr. Sain, we've had challenges coming up with this. And I reckon that implemented this, well, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But those challenges that we've had, would you say that we've addressed them? And to what extent, such that this got us to this stage?
Well, thank you. I think we've begun to address the challenges. For instance, we have, even before the policy got to this point, we have a copyright bill, which the National Assembly has passed, waiting for transmission and the assent of Mr. President. We have the Plant Variety Protection Act, which was signed into law by Mr. President. We know that the trademarks law, the patent and design law are being looked into. We also know that government is strengthening even the institutional framework for better delivery of services in the area of intellectual property. So this policy will help us to look at the gaps and fill those gaps. It will help us to have a deliberate and well-structured plan for the number of years ahead. And it will help every agency and every stakeholder to know the role they have to play, because it's not just about government, changing the laws. It's about implementation at every level. And I will say this is part of that process. The fact that the media, and we thank channels for this, the fact that you are already keen into this shows that we are all committed to implementing the policy.
So what is it that will begin to play out? Because people do all sorts of things. They claim that, look, well, we think this is normal. People's intellectual property, and somebody says, look, you can't afford to do some of the things that people do. So if you could just give us the scenarios here, when this becomes law, what is it that we will expect? Or what is it that we can or cannot do? For instance, if I were to take, maybe in the area of media, since that's where we are now, okay. I think that would hit home, if you could.
Okay. Well, first, the policy is only a policy framework. The laws will still have to be put in place that will regulate what you can do and what you cannot do. Like I said, the copyright bill has been revised, it's been amended, it's been passed by the National Assembly. So in the area of media, for instance, there will be more in that provision to address online abuses and infringements. There will be more to address, piracy in the physical space. There will be more to address technological protection measures that will have to be put in place. So those are the provisions of the law that have been improved to help every right owner in the copyright space. The same will go on in the other aspects of intellectual property. But as far as the policy is concerned, I can look at 3 immediate deliverables. One is that we are going to deepen our consultation with stakeholders and ensure that we have more enlightenment going on. 2 is that we're going to look at those gaps in the laws and ensure that those laws that need to be worked on are addressed and all the laws in the area of intellectual property are brought up to global standards and based on our international obligations. 3 is that the institutions are going to be rebuilt or strengthened to be able to deliver services in those areas, knowing the richness of Nigeria's wealth in the area of intellectual property, the creative sector, the innovation sector. Now, these whole deliverables will help us to be able to move to the next, at least the next level in terms of Nigeria's competitive edge in the global space.
Speaking about the global space, Mr. Singh, how is this? How are we then going to rank in the Committee of Nations if we fulfill our international obligations with this policy?
Well, I think Nigeria is already is in a good place where intellectual property is concerned, because there are some laws in place that already regulate the use of intellectual property in the country. And so...
what about compliance? Are we compliant?
Compliance? Well, that depends on the national authorities. It depends on the national authorities. But what is important is that with the development or the adoption of the policy, it enables the country to see where it's running short. And especially when it comes to the international space, Nigeria is party to a number of international intellectual property treaties. Now, this policy is going to enable the country to now domesticate most of the international treaties that it is party to, and it will make it easier to implement intellectual property laws within the country as long as Nigeria is able to domesticate the international treaties to which it is party. So I wouldn't say it takes it back, but it will rather move the country forward in terms of its international obligations where intellectual property is concerned.
All right, let's get to Lagos. Our colleagues have got questions for you. Go ahead, guys.
Right. Thank you, Chamberlain. I'm enjoying this conversation, really. And I'd like to first give a wider context. Help us give a wider context on the global stage, because I recall Dr. Hussain was talking about the wealth and all of that. Just how much value is in this? How much value would we be tapping into if we get this right? And I'll start with Madam. Just how much wealth is involved? I've seen some figures, but I just want to be clear.
Well, it depends on what you're looking at, because what we know, what we believe in the World Intellectual Property Organization is that every country is endowed with wealth, and it's in different areas of human endeavor. Now, once you are able to regulate, promote, and protect intellectual property rights emanating from any act of human endeavor, you're able to create wealth. What we intend to do in the World Intellectual Property Organization, our vision is a world where intellectual property, innovation, and creativity is used in promoting economic growth. So by developing your intellectual property system, what you're doing is you are empowering your people to use their innovation and creativity to create wealth. And so what I'd say is that there is enormous wealth attached to this in terms of the innovation and creativity potential of the citizens of this country.
You know, when we talk about crude deposits, gas deposits, we usually put a value to it. You know, so we have, what, million qubits and all of that. But in terms of intellectual property, it's quite hard to put a value to it, a figure to it. And interestingly, I just saw that September 14th was our National Creativity Day. So clearly there's some sort of traction in that area. So maybe you can speak to that wealth as well. What is available for us to tap into? Maybe some sort of projection. Then we can now talk about the scope of intellectual property for those listening who want to also at least tap into this.
I don't think you can.
Pardon me. That's for Dr. That's for Dr. Hussain.
What potential you're.
Pardon me. That's what Dr. Hussain. I'll come back to you in a moment. Dr. Hussain, if you can hear me.
Said, putting figures to inexhaustible wealth is difficult. And let me give you an example. For instance, when COVID came, we never knew the potentials. We never knew what humanity could do. We never knew what our young ones could do. And we see that a lot of them are now beginning to spring up with wonderful ideas, innovation, creativity, such that in a day, within 24 hours, you could have such a turnaround in fortunes that whatever figure you put out there would certainly appear not to line up properly. So I agree that we can't begin to, unless we measure scientifically, which hasn't been done, and I don't think it's been done anywhere really. We only extrapolate and we speculate, but to measure scientifically the depth of a man's intellect is rather difficult. You mentioned the oil wells. Oil wells we can project because they are physical. You can do seismic tests and know how much oil you have, but you can't measure how much a man has in him or a woman has in her. We saw that in sports, for instance. Whenever Nigeria could just go out there and suddenly, turn the tables and become, world record breakers. This is the kind of situation you also have in the creative sector and in the innovation sector. And what this policy would do is to help us to tap into those untapped resources. It will help us to identify areas where we have competitive edge. It will encourage the young ones and the creative minds to explore, believing that there is a lot to be derived from the intellectual property field. So this policy we're looking at is not just for copyright, it's not just for one aspect of intellectual property, to cover all aspects of intellectual property and to address the value chains in ensuring that there is a proper delivery of returns on intellectual investments.
Mr. Singh, I've gone through the document and it's quite rich, I must say. There's the area of industry property rights, plant animal rights, plant variety rights. But as Madam has rightly noted, there is a need for the domestication of some of these protocols. But then again, there's the copyright bill that the National Assembly has passed. What will now be the implication of the domestication of these protocols within the country? Would the copyright law need an amendment or a firming up, to ensure a more robust document?
Well, thank you very much. First, I want to say that the policy and strategy deal with all aspects of intellectual property. But since the question is around copyright, I will say that the copyright bill had anticipated all that needed to be done as far as our international obligations are concerned. For instance, Nigeria deposited 4 copyright instruments, treaties, ratifying 4 treaties in 2017, October. And those 4 brought us to the level where we could say that we have acceded to all major treaties that are relevant, and the present bill has taken into account our obligations under those treaties. So the policy will not in any way bring us back. The policy will only enhance the delivery of services within the context of the obligations we owe and what we've already agreed to in our national law. This will also happen in the area of trademarks and patents, where, as the Honorable Attorney General mentioned at the opening, Nigeria is already looking forward to modernizing its laws in all areas of intellectual property. That will include patents and designs. It will include the trademark sector, and of course, we already have the plant varieties already accommodated. So in drafting the policy, the experts were mindful not just of where we are in terms of legislative compliance, but also where we want to get to as a nation that is developing and has such enormous intellectual wealth.
Will this policy framework be requiring a separate legislative backing from the copyright bill that is before the National Assembly?
Well, in my opinion, a policy will not require any legislative process. It's essentially within the purview, I hope I'm correct on this, of the executive to determine its policy or the policy that would run government. It's not a legislation, so it doesn't have to go to parliament. All I think will be required is for us to submit this to the respective ministers, heads of ministries, and from there, the honorable ministers will most likely determine how they will want to take it to the Federal Executive Council. Once Council approves it, it becomes a national policy that will guide everyone and to help us in revising or formulating legislative actions as we move forward.
Very quickly, you talked about technological protection measures earlier on, and one of the greatest threats to the work of creatives in the country is the work of merchants, albeit illegally, who reproduce their works, in all those big markets in the country's commercial capital and perhaps in other parts of the country. What will these technological protection measures offer, to protect the work of creatives in the country?
Let me just illustrate this way. Channels is a sought-after station, and you should be able to get some return when you broadcast. If you decide to put some locks in some aspect of your broadcast, then it shouldn't be for anyone out there to just, break the locks and then redistribute channels signals. So when you have the TPMs, these technology protection measures, and you have adequate protection, then you'll be able to go after those who break those locks. Under the present law, we don't have that provision. So very often, Nigerian Copyright Commission is more or less, restrained when you want to, get at those people who are facilitating the piracy of signals. We see that happen everywhere. But what we do is to use what's available under the law to come after them. But it would have been better, like we're going to have under the new bill that will soon, hopefully will soon be signed into law, to have such, powers to go after the person who is making those signals available by breaking through your own technological protection measures.
Well, Mr. Sedu, just finally, I understand that Nigeria is creating this...
And it's supposed to be free to air. And if people say, but we thought this was free to air, and they rebroadcast it, would they be violating the law?
If it's not free to air, if you've not given them a license, they will be breaking the law.
Oh, we need to give the person a license.
Well, you choose whether to give or not to give.
Oh, okay.
So what we're saying is that the moment you don't have a license to rebroadcast, you have no business rebroadcasting. We've seen this happen in places where cable channels are available, direct-to-home channels are available, and people actually run wires in a neighborhood, have some decoders in their room, and feed those...
So that is illegal?
It's illegal. And I will advise anyone who subscribes to such pirated, channels or arrangements to desist, because when we come after the person who does that in the room, we'll also trace every wire to where they are being received. It's illegal.
I know you know that the musical scene, they are really hard hit with a lot of this infringement. So what's going to happen now?
Well, what's going to happen under the new law is that we will have, for the first time, we'll have the powers to go online and take down those sites where this music are being streamed, because that's the largest challenge we have in the music area today. For the physical, we know where to get them. But let's get those big ones who are making good money online.
Why is it that the physical ones seem like a behemoth that they can't be taken down? Those who are pirating other people's work.
I would say there's no one that cannot be taken down. And what I believe is, it doesn't matter how many pirates you have out there, take them down one at a time, you'll get to where you want to get to, and bring the figure down to at least a single-digit manageable figure for piracy.
Okay, but Mr. Sedu, if, for instance, this comes through and one has a concept, an idea, and we register it in Nigeria here, and we don't register it in, say, Western countries, is it going to be valid globally such that no country, no other place in the world can you take that idea insofar as we've registered the idea or trademarked it here?
Well, Nigeria is party to a number of international treaties. Now, I think Nigeria is already party to the PCT, the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And so once you register it at the national level and you take international protection, you're covered in all the countries that are listed in the PCT.
So that is how come you are able to protect your innovations, your inventions abroad. It is by being a member or a party to the treaties that are administered by WIPO that you get to protect your inventions abroad.
Okay, so as we wrap up now, if one has an idea at the moment and we come to a NCC and register it or we trademark it, what do we expect? What rights or what protection do we benefit from that at the moment?
You must go on the right stream. There are three streams.
Okay.
The copyright stream, which is for creative works, music, literary works, and film, and all that. Then you have the trademark stream, which has to do with insignia that you put on your goods to sell them. So channels will be a mark. Then you have the third stream, which is the patent and design stream, which is for ideas that go into innovations, either through a process or a product. So if it's for trademarks, you go to the trademark registry, which is in the Ministry of Industries, Trade and Investment. Or if it's for patents, you go to the patent registry or the design registry in the same ministry. Then if it's for copyright, you come to Nigerian Copyright Commission. But of all these three streams, copyright does not require you to register. You enjoy your copyright the moment ink dries on paper. Even before it dries on paper, you already enjoy copyright in that work. The other two will require registration if you want that threshold of protection for the trademark or for the patent. So once you know where to go, and if you go to any of these three, anyone will be redirected to the appropriate stream where you should have the right protection.
All right, sounds interesting. We'll be looking forward to that at the end of the day when this comes on stream. I mean, it's meant to ensure sanity everywhere else, such that people's intellectual property is protected and they could benefit from whatever work that it is that they do out there. So we'll keep tabs with this. Whenever the next stage does come up, we'll always be there to get it across. So I'd like to thank you for coming on, Loretta Asiedu, Senior Counselor, World Intellectual Property Organization, Division for Africa, as well as Dr. John Asain, Director General, Nigerian Copyright Commission. Thank you and all the best.
Thanks
for
having
the good
us.
work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. We'll be ending the segment on a football note this morning. And as you've seen there, Ida Petersai joins us next. He's vying for the presidency of Nigerian Football Federation. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chamberlain.
Well, you are a presidential aspirant now for the Nigerian Football Federation. So, I mean, at this point, one needs to ask, is this election still going to hold? Because what we see this morning is that the court has stopped this September 30 elective congress scheduled for Benin.
Yeah, we heard about that yesterday, and we're preparing for the elections. This is Nigeria. You know,
what does that mean?
I just really do believe that these guys will come to the negotiating table. You remember it happened the last time when they went to court and said there will be no Congress, but the Congress held because they had a mutual understanding. They have great points. They're just saying enlarge the Congress. That's what they've been saying all this while. Enlarge the Congress so that a whole lot of people can partake. You know, if you look at the formation of the NFF Congress, you have about 37 FA chairmen, and they dictate who becomes the president. They dictate almost everything. Whatever decision they take is finale. So people are saying it can be so. Give other people opportunity to express themselves and say, this is the way we want to go. You know, so everyone is clamoring for equal voting rights. Let's say the Footballers Union want to say, you can't have 37 and we have one. And we're a block. There are 6 blocks in the NFF, you know, and if every block would have equal voting rights, then you can campaign and know that you stand a chance. But if every other block has 1 vote and the FA chairman have 37 votes, they decide. They absolutely decide. Yeah. I think that's what.
So that's lopsided.
That's what I said. A whole lot of people in Nigeria are saying I think the status needs to be changed.
Because part of what we hear them say, they're saying, look, that if NFF, if they proceed with this election, in fact, choosing September 30 is an attempt to break the law, because this case, they say October 31, I think?
No, I think 20th of September.
20th of September.
Yes.
So now, choosing that 30, they interpret it as though they're trying
I'm not a lawyer, but I understand one thing, that the Congress determines what the Constitution is. So if the Congress comes in and say, we want to make an amendment here and there, or we want to prolong a day or two, I think they have the right, because they run football basically in the country. It is when someone arbitrarily says, I want to make changes, then that's illegal. But if the Congress comes together and say, this is how it should be, this is what we've decided, and they will pass a vote. And if the 50% plus one decides the right thing, just normal democratic situation. And I think they called and they said, okay, let's extend because of the elections. And they've agreed that elections will hold. Well, that's why we're here, preparing tediously for this election.
Why was there any rapprochement? Did they reach out to them in the first place, and why didn't they? Why did they have to wait for them to go to court? Because this matter had come up several times.
Well, there are a lot of things I know I might not be able to say on air, because there were meetings behind the scene and there were agreements behind the scene. And I think these guys are saying, well, you are not keeping to your own part of the agreement. You promised us that if we pull down the court case in Bayelsa, that you will expand the Congress. And elections are coming, and you've not expanded the Congress. But I just saw, briefly, I saw the minutes for the next Congress in Benin. And one of the things before the election, says that the Congress will sit to expand the Congress, which is what these guys are clamoring for.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not a lawyer, but they are saying if this is done, then there's no need for a court case. There's no need for a case, because what they are advocating for is for the expansion of the Congress. So in the minutes, they're saying they'll bring the topic up, and there will be expansion before the elections.
That expansion is going to be relative, because we don't know what exactly that will amount to, or what specifically will be done, contrary to what the other people are asking. So is there sort of like a middle ground? Because if these people say, expand it, and then they take a certain decision, which in their own interpretation will be tantamount to an expansion, and these people don't agree, so what happens?
I think the government the minister has been fantastic all about this. The minister has come in. The president has written a letter, asking them to expand. There's this 10-year plan that has just been released. Football plan. And in the plan, they advocated, they said, we could do it this way. So I think they have a template to use, especially from the government. And I really say this from the bottom of my heart, I don't think anyone can run football without the support of the government. I really do believe that, and I've advocated that since. The Europeans can say, keep the government away from our game. But we're not as developed as they are. We don't have a lot of money as they have. We're not as independent as they are. So there's no way you will not involve the government. And I think it's just an understanding between the NFF and the government, or whatever person that runs sports. You should be able to come in agreement, or in synergy, basically, and work together. It's as easy as that.
All right, let's head to Lagos before we come back to your candidature and those who've endorsed you. Guys?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Peterside, your first reaction was that, yes, indeed, you've heard about the court order, but that then your election is going ahead to hold. Wouldn't you be flouting a court order if your election holds?
Well, thank you. That's not for me to decide. My job is to campaign. My job is to let myself be known or seen there by the delegates that I'm ready. The question I would ask is that, what if it is changed a day before and I'm not prepared for the elections? What happens? So I'm going on preparing for the elections and waiting for those that will handle the nitty-gritties of the matter to handle it. I've been preparing for 3 months. So telling me to stop now when I'm close to heaven gate will not be wise. So I'm just going on and doing my thing and hoping that those that are in charge will do what they have to do.
You say that they're seeking expansion of congresses, those who have headed to court. What exactly will be the implication of this expansion of congresses?
Now, what happens is that it's all about inclusivity. It's all about voting rights. Imagine that the FA chairman have 37 votes, and the coaches have one. The club chairman, okay, the LMC have one. Your one vote can't influence 37. So if it is expanded, and you say, I have 37, you have 37, he has 37, then we are all playing on a equal playing ground. I have an idea. I really do have an idea of what will stop these struggles forever. And if my idea is bought, it will just change the complexion of these elections and the NFF.
Now, the thing about this is that since you say players' union have adopted you, isn't that as presently constituted? How significant will that be? Because the votes, it's not as much.
Yes, it is not as much. I played. What better constituency to say, we know you. You are part of us. And yes, the one vote might not be significant, but I'm not coming because I'm a player. I'm not saying, no, a whole lot of people have endorsed me. In my form, when I filled my form, you needed your state and 3 other regions, which I got. So it has to be a spread. They are saying you must have a national spread. And thank goodness my state, they were the first people to endorse me. You understand? My FA chairman, Barrister Green, it was easy. I went to him, boom. My form was signed. The governor of the state behind me fully. I'm a Rivers man.
So is Barrister Green letting sleeping dogs lie now?
Who wasn't sleeping?
I mean, so he says, okay, well, you go ahead. So whatever it is that we may have had with the NFF is now in the past.
Barrister Green is a warrior. He's a warrior. And I think we're here today. We're getting the success we're getting today because he was one of those that fought the system. And he's done his part. And I came to him. And I hear from the grapevine he wanted to come in. I think he's listening to me.
That's why I'm like, wait a minute. How did Barrister Green endorse you?
It's my brother. I think we got to a compromise. And remember, he's commissioner for sports. So there are bigger things to take care of there in Rivers City. He has the Real Madrid Academy. He is the chairman of the sole administrator of Rivers United. And they're playing their continental games. So let him leave this small one for me and manage the bigger one. I think we got to a compromise. And he says, come on, let's go. We will support you.
But interestingly, I mean, the requirement is that your state FA and 3 other regions need to endorse you so you can have that spread. Yeah. And there are about 40 or thereabout candidates for this one position.
No, we're 11 now.
11 now?
Yes.
So now, all those 11 scale through. It means that, any one of them could clinch this. They all have interesting ideas.
I'm here now. It's not them. It's not them. I have to be. I have to be the president of the FA. Why? Because most of the people coming out have been there. They can give reasons, excuses why they were not in charge, why it was Pinnick that was in charge. But please, I've always said it. If you think the man leading is not doing right, you resign. If you don't resign, you agree with him. And that's what we're saying.
Does it always work like that? Because sometimes they could just be there there's experience that they've garnered. Yeah. They've seen how things have gone wrong. They've learned how not to do things wrong, assuming that were the case. And so they could argue that, well, now I can do it a lot better, having seen how things can improve.
It is. 8 years, you kept thinking you can do better. No, let them go. We want a clean sweep. I'm fresh. I'm new ideas. The things in my brain, they can't even handle it. You understand? We need a clean sweep. Our football needs surgery. I had the minister, we're on a deathbed, and you just need a defibrillator. What do they call that thing? You need to, to jack it up, and I have that to do. I'm so passionate about this. I've been around. I was with the team in 2010. I was media officer of the team. I was with the national team. I was in the circle for 4 years, and I have a voice in Africa, if you would allow me. We've seen things happen around, and there are solutions to these little matters. What I'm saying, if I have my way, I'll ask all other contestants to be assistant. Just assist me. 10 vice presidents.
That's going to be a lot of headache.
Yes, we will try. I'll manage them. And then I will lead the thing. But for real, this thing is about grassroots. I've said it over and over. And I've seen a whole lot of people, when I brought up my manifesto, I've seen a whole lot of people repeating all that I've been saying. They were not saying this before I came, right? They were always talking about Super Eagles and our national team will play better. But that's not what it is. It rests with the FA chairman. I say it again. It rests with the FA chairman. They've been neglected for years. If we give them money, we must give them.
Which is what you promised them.
Yes, we must give them. It's as simple as arithmetic. I'll give them money. I said, go back to your grassroots and let's begin to build. Begin to build there. We'll have what we call the President's Cup, where these young ones will begin to play regional football at that level. And you see, it's so easy. If you're a chairman of, let's say, Borno State, you will trust me because I'm giving you money. And I tell you, look for players for me. If you see talents in your state, recommend them. And I will trust you because you trust me. And with that, we'll begin to build from bottom top.
So isn't there going to be a condition precedent upon which you give them money?
Yes, we will have, there are committees. We will monitor them. We'll make sure that they're doing the right thing. We'll give them templates to follow. We'll make sure that we'll send people back. We'll just can't give you money to go and buy Mercedes-Benz and go and buy a land. It's for the development of the game. So we will give you money and we will come back. We'll have assessors. We'll monitor you and we'll direct you. We'll say, this is what we want. This is what we want. Then we'll begin to produce from bottom top. Now you see, when we played, it happened. I played for Nigeria. I was invited in 1992. It was Christian Chukwu that took a phone and called Westerhoff. Said there's a goalkeeper in Enugu. I was playing for Rangers then. He needs to be in the national team. That's how we all came to the national team. But all of a sudden, what we do now, we pick up the phone and we call Germany. And we beg these people, come and play for us. They can't even sing the national anthem.
Wow. Now, if as we wind down, if the Congress was going to be expanded,
yes,
how or what do you recommend in terms of what, even if it's the policy that the government has put in place, what would it look like for everybody to be satisfied?
I have an idea. I really do have an idea. And my idea, maybe I will share it. Maybe somebody will buy it. I have an idea. My idea is all the blocks, every block, produce 10. You must go back and have an election in your block. Then it's authentic. Produce 10. When you produce the 10, we'll say your president, your vice president, your secretary, your treasurer, automatically goes into the Congress. Automatically. Then the 6, the other 6, will make up the Congress. It's as simple as that. Now, when it comes to elections, there will be no Congress elections. Why? Because what you produce from your block get into the Congress automatically. So they have to battle and be accountable to their block. But now the president and the vice president position, president, vice president, will be contested all the time, will be contested. Now, there will be no this election, banning election, no. Yeah. Just 2 people, the president's position, the vice president's position. The other blocks will automatically produce people into the Congress, and It's easy.
All right, that will be interesting. So we'll be looking forward to that. And so if the election goes on, as you say, well, you're campaigning, just waiting to see what the authorities then decide. So I want to wish you all the best. If I had to wish everybody the best, because we want
No, come on, now, somebody don't do this.
May the best
Wish me the best. Wish me the best.
I've done that.
When you see them, you wish them the best. Wish me the best. Let me take these best wishes out from here.
Okay, we wish you the best.
Thank you.
And wish Nigerian football the best as well. So may the best man win as well. But it don't be decided. The former Super Eagles goalkeeper. Gentlemen, that is the show today. As a matter of fact, we do thank you all for letting us be a part of your, not just today, your weekend. You know, you've always done that. So we'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so.
I know you think Chamberlain's wish were a vote in the election, so I don't know whether to add that wish. But we've got some messages.
That would be a very, very important vote in the election.
Oh, okay.
So you've got 3 wishes for the Nigerian Football Federation. We wish you the very best for the year. We've got some messages. I don't know if we have time to take them. Ian Akina has this one talking about the intellectual property conversation, saying that if stronger institutions are built, it will be difficult for violators of copyright laws to circumvent our extant laws without any prosecution or deterrent. The Commission must act now to send a message to would-be violators to stop intellectual property theft.
And Chinedu Allison has this one. He says, if the APC is insisting that the primary election authorized by them will be recognized, then my question is, did INEC monitor the party primary election that produced Akpabio? The court should stick to the 2022 Electoral Act as amended. Thank you, Chinedu, for your message.
Have to anchor at this point. I'd like to thank you so much for being a part of this program. It's a Friday. Make the weekend count. I'm Kayode Okikiodu.
Indeed, thank you for watching. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo.